here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh.
We end our show with a look at the case of Samuel Harrell, who died 4 months ago at New York's Fishkill Correctional Facility. An autopsy report obtained by the New York Times determined that Harrell's death was a homicide caused by a physical altercation with corrections officers. Harrell, an African-American prisoner with bipolar disorder, died on April 21st after as many as 20 corrections officers kicked, punched, and dragged him down a flight of stairs while he was handcuffed, according to interviews conducted by the New York Times. Some of the officers were known around the prison as the Beat-Up Squad. Officers then called an ambulance and told the medical crew Harrell may have overdosed on synthetic marijuana, known as K2. Harrell died that night in a nearby hospital. The autopsy showed that Harrell had no illicit drugs in his system.
To talk more about the case of Samuel Harrell and a series of other allegations of abuse at the hands of correctional officers in New York prisons, we're joined by New York Times reporter Michael Schwartz. He co-wrote the article, "Prison Guard Beat-Up Squad is Blamed in New York's Inmate's Death." Michael won a George Polk Award for journalism this year for justice reporting for exposing the abuse of inmates by guards at correction and detention facilities. The New York Times reports led to resignations and dismissals at Rikers Island, the New York City jail complex, and to a Justice Department lawsuit seeking federal oversight of city jails. Welcome to Democracy Now! It's great to have you with us,
Thank
Michael.
You.
Talk about the beat-up squads and just exactly who this prisoner was.
So Samuel Harrell was a 30-year-old man. He had been in and out of prison since 2002 on drug charges, drug selling and possession. He had no violence in his records. He had something of a disciplinary history, but again, no violence. He had been diagnosed as bipolar in 2010, and his family members say he would sometimes behave erratically. He would think the television was speaking to him. He would think pictures, family pictures, photographs were speaking to him. And on the evening of April 21st, he was, by the accounts we've heard, also behaving erratically. He had been depressed for some time, announced to correction officers at the Fishkill Correction Facility that he was going home, had packed his bags and had headed towards the exit, and at some point got into a confrontation with correction officers that led to him being handcuffed, and according to about 20 inmate accounts that we have, was beaten, possibly dragged or thrown down the stairs, and then ultimately ended up dying. As you mentioned, in this time, correction officers called paramedics, told them that he was possibly having an overdose from a synthetic marijuana called K2. And the autopsy report found that there was none of that or any other illicit drugs in his system. And so right now we're waiting for any further moves in the investigation. The state police, which is investigating it, has said it would turn over its findings to the local DA shortly, and it will go from there.
How did you learn of this story?
We received a tip about the death about 2 days after it occurred from one of our sources, actually at Rikers Island, who had connections at Fishkill, and dug and dug, and we eventually hooked up with a law firm that was representing his family, which was able to obtain these sworn affidavits from inmates. Many of them agreed to share them with us on condition of anonymity, but 3 of them chose to have their names published, one of whom was already released at the time.
You also mentioned in your piece that many of the prisoner inmates, or the inmates who testified, have since been punished.
Up as many as 9 have been put in solitary confinement. Whether that is linked to their witnessing and speaking out about the death is unclear. Others said that they were threatened with violence, threatened that they would be next if they said anything about.
They said anything to whom?
If they said anything to investigators, as we understand it, there were internal Department of Correction investigators who went in and interviewed some of these inmates. But some of these inmates also said they received threats from other correction officers about not talking.
And is that typical in your experience of reporting?
We've heard these similar accusations in the past in state prisons. We wrote recently about abuse claimed by inmates at the Clinton Correctional Facility after this escape in Dannemora in June, that they received similar threats and worse, that some of them were beaten up in an effort to extract information.
So